Hey everyone, hi. Oh my gosh, hi. Long time no see. I'm so excited to talk with you all. I'm going to try and make this a one take kind of thing. I don't want to do very much editing to this video. We'll get into that in just a second. But oh my goodness, it has been a minute. So I really want to sit down and chit chat with you all. If you are new to my channel, then hello, I'm Shelly. I really love books and reading. I also forgot to put on earrings, and which is unusual. I'm gonna do that while I encourage you to subscribe, but I really love to read, and that is my big thing on this channel. I share all the books that I'm reading, all the books that I'm interested in, and if you are liking the vibe, the very casual vibe, very unedited vibe, I would encourage you to subscribe and stick around. Without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video as I try and put on my earrings. This video probably looks a little bit different, and it's because my computer broke. I don't really know what happened to it, and I don't know if I've ever filmed and edited a whole video on my phone, so that's going to be a new venture, but it was really bugging me. It was really bugging me not to be able to talk with you all. It's been a whole emotional journey, to be honest with you, not talking with you all. And so anyway, so I was like, I'm just gonna do it on my phone, which is less about like, I think I was sort of lying to myself a little bit when I was like, but I'm just so used to like this certain quality and with my camera, and it's gonna be different, and I don't know about that. And I thought it's more important to show up and be with you all and spend this time with you all than to worry about like the quality. And I'll just learn along the way how to edit on my phone, and I'll try and make it easy on myself to not have that many like cuts. So I'm actually here to wrap up the month of August. Is that right? We're in September, so it's August reading. So I'm going to just wrap all that up for you, but my computer broke. Actually, I had a bunch of things kind of break all at once. My sciatica, which I haven't had, it's like a back, leg, foot pain on one half of my body. My sciatica started to really act up. And of course, I didn't know it was my sciatica pain. I haven't had it since my firstborn son's pregnancy. So it's been about 8-ish years since I've had any kind of sciatica problem. So all I knew was that my back was hurting and the ball of my foot was killing me. And I was like, maybe it's because I'm back at work, maybe it's this, that, and the other. And finally I realized once I Googled it that it's my sciatica. So I know some stretches, I know the things that are best for it, but it's still giving me some issues. So the day I figured out that my sciatica was bothering me, I also got sick, and I started to develop a head cold, which I'm on the tail end of right now. And anyways, and then the day that I got sick, that same day, my computer just refused to turn on. So we took it to a local place, and unfortunately they've been really busy. The thing is that I can still record on my camera, like my normal recording setup. I just have nowhere to put that footage, to export that footage to then edit. So I have, you know, what is it? I have videos in the hopper, so to speak, but they can't really move on with the process until I get my computer back. So learning how to work, like work, meaning teach, without a computer has been really tough because my computer is my main tool. I use my phone to communicate and to entertain myself, but my computer is my workhorse. It is my work tool. Doing lesson plans, putting in grades, taking attendance, coming up with just being able to like print from my computer. So we have this temporary solution with devices, and sort of long story short is that I'm using my husband's iPad that has a keyboard to do all of my work stuff on there, but everything has a learning curve. So there's been a lot of tears. There's been a lot of, I've been very emotional the last 7 to 10 days, partly for sickness, partly for pain, partly because I feel like I lost my main tool. I lost another hand, so to speak, in terms of organization and how to do stuff. So it's been really weird. It's been really weird. And I'm just getting through it, and it's okay. And I'm like, you know what, again, like I sort of, also it was one of those things, lots of fragments here. It was one of those things where the computer people said, we'll have it done on Monday, like several days ago Monday. And Monday came and went, and it was a holiday. I think they had forgotten it was a holiday. So Monday came and went, and so then we check in on Tuesday, no update. We check in on Wednesday, no update. And then finally on Thursday, they said the thing that they thought was broken is not what's actually broken. It needs some further tinkering. And so now we're back waiting again. So yeah, what turned out to be a very hopeful situation that I thought I could just kind of scoot by with a couple of days without my main tool, it's turned into now it's been over a week, and it's just getting, you know, it's forcing me to learn new avenues of work, of how to work, including how to make videos, because, you know, if it's important, you'll figure it out. Like, where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm like, the first thing was to get work stuff figured out. And then now the second thing is, you know, getting, in terms of like life without a computer, now the second thing is getting YouTube stuff figured out. So this is me figuring it out. But let me talk about the books that I read in August. That's really what we're here for. Gosh, and you know what? Even there's even more stuff going on than just these things. This sort of like physical health and computer. It's just been a chaotic journey over here. But we're good. We're coming back down to earth. So let's talk about the books that I read. Hopefully I can edit in pictures. I don't know if I can. I think I will. Maybe I can hold it up like Steve does. Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Okay, remember I was like, I'm not gonna edit, so we're just gonna figure it out. So the first book I finished in August was A Gentleman, whoa, what did I do? Okay, it's A Gentleman in Moscow. We'll do that. I'm gonna try and put up a picture too. So by Amor Tolls. I read this with my friend Anita, and it was interesting. So A Gentleman in Moscow is about, which I kept on wanting to say, the Count in Russia. You know, I don't know. I think there was partly because they call him the Count. Okay, it's Count Rostov. He is in house arrest in this hotel, and it was a very sweet story. I didn't love it. Okay, so this Count Rostov is in house arrest, basically house arrest in this like massive hotel, and it's more or less about his life and how he gets it to work, really the fullness of his life in this hotel. His life transforms and changes. He's very well loved. He's great with kids. He's got a great personality. He has different friendships and relationships as he's living in this very confined space. I mean, it's a massive space, but it's also confined. You know, it's not this small place. He has the fullness of the hotel at his disposal, and he really is able to make it work. And there are some really cute moments, there's some really touching moments, and there are some really sweet moments, but that's where it really kind of got me, is that it became almost saccharinely sweet. It was like too sweet at times, and I kind of wanted some grit to it, to be honest with you. And even though it was Russian, it was we're set in Russia and we're set in Moscow, it really could have been set anywhere, in my opinion. And some of the Russianness was very cardboard cutout and very cliche. Now, I know that people love, love, love this book. Like, people love this, The Count in Russia or A Gentleman in Moscow. And in a lot of ways, there's this play on like, what is a gentleman and what makes a gentleman and the standards of a gentleman. You know, that's all at play in this book. But I don't know, it was just okay for me. Ah, gosh, okay. I feel like it's sacrilegious to say. Well, it's fine. I hope y'all will forgive me if you really, really love this book. The next book I read was Sarah Perry's Enlightenment. So there is the picture, Sarah Perry's Enlightenment. And this tells the story of, I read it because it has been longlisted for the Booker. I'll tell you that. I've read 3 longlisted books on the Booker now. Sarah Perry's Enlightenment, James by Percival Everett, and The Safekeep by Yael van der Woeten. Okay, there we go. So anyways, Enlightenment, not The Safekeep, Enlightenment by Sarah Perry is about an older man named, well, not older, but he's like in his 50s. His name is Thomas. He's a writer, and his friendship with another character much younger than him, a 17-year-old girl, Grace. And they actually have a very like parent-child relationship. And I think, you know, in a lot of ways, Thomas, I quite liked. I thought he was a very complex and interesting person. They're living in Essex, which I don't really know. I know means something to be from Essex. Maybe someone more British can tell you that, you know, so they're living in Essex, and to me, it had a very small town feel, that everyone in Essex kind of know, or they live in a small area in Essex, and everyone in that small area kind of know each other and run into each other, and they end up playing roles in this small community that they at times feed into this role and at times defy this role. But ultimately, it's about, like, Thomas and Grace are outcasts in their community. They're a little odd, they're a little bit strange, and they become obsessed or very curious about a figure that lived years and years and years ago, like 100 years ago. And they want to learn more about this woman who was an astronomer, really was very observant about the stars. And so throughout the story, not only are Thomas and Grace learning more about themselves, but they're learning more about this figure through documents and stories and putting pieces together. And in a lot of ways, I thought that the character sketches of these two people were really, really interesting. I really enjoyed learning more about the oddities and the quirks, and the way that Sarah Perry was able to come full circle with these characters was interesting. I also just loved like the multi-generational friendship aspect, because I'm somebody who makes friends across the spectrum of ages, that I really love having friends that are, you know, several years older than me and several years younger than me. I like all of that. And so I really could appreciate the novel at, you know, on those levels. I don't know, there's something about it. Maybe it's the fact that almost like nothing happens in the book, that is making it kind of feel like there's something about it that is not the best. I don't know how to explain it. And I'm not a plot-driven person, but I think it could have used a little bit more plot. But I loved like the theological questions that were bubbling underneath the surface throughout the book. The fact that, you know, we're thinking about identity and compassion and religion, and what happens when you walk away from the church or don't quite fit with the church. I thought all of that was really beautiful, but not all of it worked for me. I do think it was more successful than the second novel I read for the Booker Prize, which was The Safekeep by Yael van der Woeten. This is about a really, really unlikable main character who I can't remember her name. I will kind of talk through it as I look it up. It is, well, the girlfriend's name is Ava, and her name, her brother Louis, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't do it. I couldn't just talk as I was looking through it. The main character's name is Isabel, and she is a wretched person. She's terrible. She's socially very odd. I was like, is she maybe neurodivergent? Is she, like, she is awful when you meet her. Somebody that I would not want to come in contact with. And she ends up through like kind of some odd circumstances getting a house guest who is her brother's girlfriend named Ava, comes to live with Isabel. Her brother's name is Louise, or Louis. Anyways, Ava comes to live with Isabel, and they end up having sort of a love affair. It ends up turning into some spicy scenes. And at the end of the day, it ends up being like, there's this paranoia bubbling underneath the surface amid these like really explicit, spicy scenes. And then there was like a twist in the book, and I thought the twist was really good and effective, but ultimately I thought this was like a very, very mundane, like a bad Sarah Waters book. It really reminded me of Sarah Waters' book, The Paying Guests, because in a lot of ways in that book too, the main character takes on some house guests, and there ends up being like some really good twists and turns. But I felt like the book was incumbent upon one single twist. The Safekeep was really dependent on one single twist, and the twist was really good, but it wasn't great. And like, as much as this was set in like the 1960s, I think, or as much as it was set in the past, I really couldn't get a sense of the exact time period because it really didn't matter. It was like post-World War II, which ends up becoming a part of the book later on. But it was hard to figure out the time period because there wasn't really a lot of identifying markers as to when the time period was, except for the twist. I don't know. It just was like weird. And the spicy scenes to me were so overwritten. It was so much. It was so intense. And, you know, I keep on checking to make sure I'm recording because I really, again, I'm not like the best at this yet. So it just wasn't for me. And I am surprised that it made it to the Booker because to me, there were so many better books out there that could have made it to the Booker. And this was just, it was just okay to me. So yeah, talk about a Booker winner. It won back in 2001, but it was long listed. No, this book won the Booker back in 2001, but it was published in 2000, and I did it for my video, like books in 2000, which I thought were great. And it was, oh my goodness, I have an itchy nose. This is the kind of stuff I'm going to edit out. Okay, so it's the true history of the Kelly Gang, the true history of the Kelly Gang, by Peter Carey. This is my first Peter Carey. And the first half was super strong. We were following Ned Kelly, who I didn't know was not a fictitious character until halfway through. And one of my friends, my friend Anita, was like, oh, I know something about Ned Kelly. He was supposed to be kind of a brute in Australia, blah, blah, blah. Not blah, blah, blah to Anita, or like what she said, but like, you know, thus his history unfolds from there, was what I'm trying to say. And so Ned Kelly ends up being, he immigrates from Ireland to Australia. He develops a reputation about him. And it was one of those things where it's like, let me tell you like how Ned Kelly is actually more of a sympathetic character than he has ever been portrayed in history. And there are some discrepancies, but like everybody gets in trouble in his family, like his brothers, his mom, him, his wife, like they all have quite the reputation. And so it's, the first half was really strong. I really sympathized with a younger Ned and like how they are really, the odds are really, really against them. And he's really trying to he's trying to scrape by just with the means that he has, which is very little. But as the story progresses, it starts to get kind of convoluted and really inaccessible for somebody who doesn't know very much about Ned Kelly. I ended up having to look up things about Ned Kelly to better understand what Peter Carey was doing in the second half of the book. I just felt like Peter Carey needed to sort some things out. And though the first half was super strong and interesting and then had a lot of things going for it. The second half just like fell apart for me. So not super great. Then I also read, my goodness, I read Persepolis. This is about the Iranian Revolution. We're following Marjane. This is a graphic novel. So you have, I'm hoping you can see. So you have these really awesome, this really fantastic artwork, which I honestly had to get used to at first, but the artwork ended up really growing on me. So this is about the Iranian Revolution, and it's about Marjane's, childhood, and it's really about growing up in a country that isn't very strict when you're younger. Politically, things change. In Marjane's childhood, everything changes quite rapidly, and it goes from something that is a rather progressive country to a very strict country. I mean, to the point where she's having to veil herself at school. She can't listen to any kind of pop music, any kind of rock music. And this is where like the subculture of, punkness, like being a punk, being gothic, is really starting to come up in culture, because it is, I think the 80s? No, yeah, the 80s. She's growing up in the 80s. Maybe 70s? Oh my goodness. I was right. I always doubt myself. So it starts when she's 10 years old in 1980, and things really start to change. And she's a young person who wants to have more freedom at a time when her country is starting to really place a lot of restrictions on women and on a lot of people. And so, her parents are very, very thankfully, they're not trying to be strict and restrictive on Marjane. And so, they're very supportive of her, but it's all a very dangerous situation. Your life could be in danger if you are somebody who is being contrary to the government. And so it ends up being, a really wonderful introduction to what went on with the revolution in Iran during this time. And so it was really informative, it was really interesting, and I had been meaning to read it for years, and I also read this for my year 2000 project, and I thought this was fantastic. So much better than the Peter Carey book. Then I read the 10th book in the Linley series. I read this with my friend Anita, and we have been reading the Inspector Linley series together. And it was great. The whole thing was really good. Elizabeth George, I don't love the plotness. Like, I feel like she's great at writing a great plot. Okay, this is the thing. Non-editing Shelley, the perfectionist part of me would really want to just start this whole thing over, but I'm not going to. So, the plot is great. She can set up a great mystery. She has wonderful twists and turns. There are awesome red herrings. She just doesn't always tie things up in the way that I love, But the reason why, she's not always able to stick the landing. There you go. And sometimes it's a little convoluted and sometimes it's a little much, but ultimately we get there. But the thing that I can really appreciate Elizabeth George for are her characters. Her characters are fantastic. She's got this main group of characters and they're so wonderful. They're complex. I was so mad at Inspector Linley the entire time. And I was so rooting for his sidekick, Barbara Havers, the entire time. And he's got this new person in the mix, Inspector Linley does. He has this new person that she's developing named Nakata, and he ends up being a really fascinating person that adds a lot to the mix. It's hard to talk about it, the 10th book, but if you're a reader who loves character development and can really, get behind a good plot, even though sometimes things don't always mesh at the very end, But one thing she never disappoints on are the development of the relationship of these characters that she has put forth at the very beginning. You know, since the very beginning. We meet all these characters, they all have a long history with each other, and they are phenomenal. But for me, you know, and that's what I keep going back for, are her great characters. And she always pulls me in with the mystery, and she always has some really great twists and turns, and she's always incredibly nuanced with how the mystery unfolds, and she's really good at writing very sensitive and interesting male-female relationships and parent-child relationships. She's got a really good sense of relationships. It's just sometimes always tying them up at the very end is not my favorite. And then I'll land with the last book I read this month, which is probably the best book I've read this year. I know that's a big statement, but it was so stinking good. It was so good. And I'm so glad I read it. I also started it, my 2000s project, my year 2000s video. Hopefully I can link it. I don't know, because I'm, again, editing on my phone, and so I don't know how savvy I will be with that. So, but I read The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, and this was amazing. This was so good. I love this book. So it is about two cousins, Sam Cavalier and Joe Clay. No, Joe Cavalier and Sam Clay. You would think I would know. And how they take on the comic book industry. This book is so cinematic. It's set during actually World War II. And I didn't think that it would have anything, I didn't know going into this that it was going to touch on World War II, but it absolutely does. It is a huge component of this book, but in a way that I didn't expect. It's a surprising take on World War II. And you get the comic book industry, and let me tell you, for somebody who does not care about comics like DC and Marvel and Superman and all that stuff, I did not care about any of that. But Michael Chabon was able to make me care very much about this. For not having much cuts, I'm having cuts, but it has a good bit about Jewish culture here in the book, and it, you know, there's bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs that are embedded in this. There's a good bit about magic, like literally like Houdini and being an escape artist and doing magic tricks. There's a lot about that, but mostly it has amazing characters. The characters are amazing. I cared so deeply about the characters in this book and just their struggles, their true immense struggles. And, you know, I could cry thinking about it. It's not a sad book. I cry because I love the book so much. But really the writing was superb. Michael Chabon is a phenomenal writer. This is supposed to be his magnum opus, but I want to read more from him. I think I am not gonna when I'm gonna look like in the C section of the bookstore, I'm looking for Michael Chabon more because he is just so good. He is such a good writer, and I'm really interested in what else he has written because phenomenal. It's a long book. It's a chunkster. It took up a good amount of my reading, and I am so glad it did. Like, I'm so glad it did. I was sad. It gave me, to be honest, it gave me Middlemarch feelings. When it was ending, I wanted it to be like 200 more pages. I could have read 200, 250, 500 more pages of this story because I so deeply felt for the characters and so deeply identified with all of the characters. It was so good. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop here. Just know that I love this book. So if you're looking for a good book and you're willing to put in the work because it's long, I would just highly recommend Michael Chabon's The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Also read it for my 2000s project. I'm so glad I did because it needed to happen. And yeah, anyhow, that's it from me. We're gonna stop this here. That's it from me. Thank you for being with me. And I don't know, what are we gonna call this? Like Computer Watch 2024? I don't know. Or like Tech Watch 2024, because I want my computer back, but who knows? There is no end in sight right now. But maybe it'll be my next video. I have no idea. I have really no idea. But just know that, you know, thanks for bearing with. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all in my next one. Bye.